Hello everyone, Freemantle here. Today I want to talk about some terms of liberal endeavor and what they tell us, namely giving back, chairperson, discrimination, and the corporations. I'll take them in that order. The phrase giving back may have been coined by liberals, I don't know. Certainly they popularized it, and it's very popular. In the decades of my adult life, no liberal phrase has been as successful so quickly, not even the phrase affirmative action. Go to websites of major companies. Check out your local Metro daily newspaper or your favorite magazine. Chances are pretty good there'll be a title for a web page or a column or an op-ed piece from time to time that says, giving back. When the phrase popped up in an interview I did a few years ago, I waited until the fellow I was talking to had said it often enough so that I figured his concept of giving back was fully present to him. And I said, why do you say giving back? He said, well, I'm not charging them. I said, why do you say giving back? And he was stumped. To him, giving back was just a flowery way of saying giving, in the sense of giving to charity. But of course it isn't. My giving you my lawnmower because I just bought a new one doesn't mean the same as my giving a lawnmower back to you. Giving it back means I'm returning it, that it was yours to start with, or at least you had some property-related claim to it. Giving doesn't mean that. It only means I'm handing it over to you and not charging you. The complete phrase is giving back to the community. Who's the community to which one ought to give back? There is no community or any other organization, group, or movement in human affairs that is over and above the individuals who make it up, the individual acts of those individuals, and the consequences of those individually performed acts. Don't believe it? Well, mentally start with any organization, group, or movement. Mentally subtract all the people who make it up. Now subtract all the things they do. Now subtract all the consequences of what they do. What do you have left? Nothing. I'm not saying that organizations are unreal. I'm saying they have no reality apart from the individuals and their acts that constitute them. So if something was taken from the community, it was taken from certain individuals. Who were they? What was taken? How much? Under what circumstances? Could it have been someone's discard? No return would be required. A gift? Well, reciprocation may or may not be appropriate. Depends on the relationship of the people involved. Could it have been paid back already? Could more have been paid back than was taken? Have you ever heard a liberal answer these questions about giving back? Have you ever heard a liberal raise these questions? Does it strike you as odd that the liberal is calling here for a balancing of the books? The liberal? The welfare state is intended to satisfy basic need, to give people what they need, not to compensate them for what they put into the system. That's the heartless business of earning what you get. But in the liberal welfare state, what a person puts in is unimportant. What counts is what he needs. Why is the liberal suddenly keeping accounts? I suggest that the reason is this. The phrase giving back is intended to establish an unstated, undefined, indefinite obligation of the individual to the group, simply by getting everyone to talk as if there is such an obligation. No argument, no evidence, just the pronouncing of the words giving back by many voices. The idea is that that will create a group pressure or a conscientious frame of mind in an individual that'll justify service to the community, service to the group, whenever the liberal or the liberal political process demands it. This is part of giving back. You owe it. By the way, I'm a strong believer in allowing the opposition its best shot. Nothing is to be gained by gunning down cardboard men. And in that spirit, let's suppose that there are moral duties that tie individual and community. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights reads in Article 29:1, Everyone has duties to the community, in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. And let's suppose that a person has duties to that which makes possible the free and full development of his personality. Then, supposing he were still alive, what do you think would be an appropriate means and amount for the community to give back to Thomas Edison? In the 1970s, liberal feminists made a concerted effort to elevate the social status of women. In addition to various other efforts, they went to work on the words we use. The idea here was to raise consciousness, as it's said. To raise consciousness is to make people aware. And that's done by putting something in front of people blatantly, insistently, in a manner they can't ignore. Nothing wrong with that in principle. Liberal feminists made a point, for instance, of gratuitously using and insisting on the feminine gender and pronouns, or at least avoiding the masculine gender. Not everyone brought his lunch, which is grammatically correct, but everyone brought their lunch, which is grammatically incorrect because of disagreement in grammatical number, but it's gender neutral. Liberal feminists also invented some words. Chairperson and spokesperson, for example. Their thinking, I say, was that if we say chairman, we have to think of a man, man being a part of the word, or at least we're more likely to think of a man. These liberal feminists were trying to create an intellectual environment in which a person would find it hard to follow a speech or read an article, or would feel uncomfortable or make himself look like a non-liberal unless he used the status-elevating words. This is an environment in thinking as close as possible to authoritarianism in the political realm. And it makes perfectly good sense if people are too stupid to be persuaded by evidence, reason, logic. And all this makes no good sense if people are capable of being persuaded by evidence, reason, and logic. You simply, if insistently, present the conclusive evidence that women are as intelligent or creative or whatever as men, and you let the reasoning mind of the people you're addressing do the rest. So I say, the phrase giving back is an attempt to create an obligation to the community, to society, and that the words chairperson, spokesperson, and the like tried to elevate the status of women, all without appealing to the reasoning mind. Two more examples along the same line. In the 1960s, the words everybody used to mean a distorted perception of other people, especially in matters of race relations, were bias and prejudice. The liberal decided to change that and started talking about discrimination. Why? Especially since discriminating means telling the difference between, and it's often a very good thing to do that. Try walking around New York City without discriminating between red traffic lights and green traffic lights and tell me how you do, assuming you're still around to tell me anything. I submit the liberals' reason was this. The words bias and prejudice suggest that the problem is that the bigot is making a mistake. He's wrong. The words bias and prejudice make bigotry a matter of individuals and their thinking. The word discrimination allows the liberal much more easily to talk about how institutions, organizations, traditions, and so on are at fault. In other words, how society is at fault and how society has to be changed to solve the problem. A few years ago, I served on a jury, and during the selection of jurors, one young man who was an economics major briefly remarked about the world of difference between his economics classes, where he said everything was clean-cut and rational, and one of his humanities courses, where he'd recently been studying what he called, and what the course was titled, institutional discrimination. Last example. In the 1960s and 70s, the term for the likes of General Electric or General Motors was big business. Why did the liberal want to change that to the corporations? Not corporations, but the corporations. Because, I submit, the corporations makes businesses sound more monolithic, more powerful, threatening, more inhuman, more, in a word, juggernauts. The takeaway from today's video: the liberal pays careful attention to the ways we talk that touch on what he regards as important social issues. He wants to change people's minds, but he has a very low opinion of the average guy. The liberal thinks this ordinary person is a weak thinker, a lazy thinker, or a non-thinker who can't be effectively appealed to with evidence and logic. The liberal, therefore, wants to circumvent a person's reasoning mind and to plant ideas simply by using certain words and getting other people to use them too. Now, what kind of government do you have to have if ordinary people are like that? Thank you for listening.